Greetings, YouTubers. I am Darkon. Unfortunately, Golden Nova couldn't be here since I sent him into another dimension. So, I shall be taking over the show using the dark arts of my Lord Zaron. So sit back and enjoy.
Darkon?
Nova! I thought I banished you into another dimension.
You tied me to a shoe.
Which seemed relevant at the time.
Whatever. Hi, this is the real introduction. I'm Golden Nova.
And I'm Darkon, a.k.a. Ojama J.
And today he's about to show us the funniest archetype deck I have ever seen ever.
Excuse me, but we are not funny. We are destructive, malicious beings of darkness.
Yeah, your deck runs around speedo-wearing munchkins with light attributes. The darkness resounds. Well, anyway, Ojama J is going to run us through the basics of the deck. Would you?
As you wish, Nova. Okay, the Ojamas are, as he said, red speedo-wearing creatures, but they do make up for that by using their abilities to block off your opponent's monster card zone so they can't summon anything, and also switching the attack and defense of all the creatures on the field, giving this defensive deck an offensive advantage, and your opponent, well, totally screwed. So, let's review some of the cards. Okay, the main base of this deck is, in fact, the Ojamas, but mostly these three. Ojama Yellow, Green, and Black. They all have the same stats: Light Attribute, Level 2, Beast Type, 0 Attack, and 1000 Defense. And at first glance, they're not really good cards. They have no effect and they have 0 attack. But with the cards in this deck, you can actually make them into worthy adversaries for your opponent.
Next we have Ojama Blue. It's a pretty cool searcher for the Ojamas. Basically, if it gets destroyed by battle, you can add any 2 Ojama cards from your deck, and that's including Oja Muscle. So it basically says, Ojama Blue dies, take any 2 cards from your deck, you're ready for whatever situation you've just run into.
Next we have Ojama Red. Basically what he does is he is the swarmer of the deck. If I summon him, then I'm able to take any Ojamas in my hand, at least as long as I have enough monster card zones, and summon as many of them as I want to the field in Yu-Gi-Oh! Regulations. And I actually say that this could be a good strategy for those who love to tribute summon or synchro summon, but that's just my opinion, so do what you will.
Next we have one of the best cards in this deck, King of the Swamp. It's a water attribute, level 3, aqua type. What's that attack in there? I can't see with that. 500 attack and 1100 defense. But its stats are what make it good. It's the 2 effects. One is that it can be substituted for any fusion material monster, and this deck runs on some pretty tasty fusion materials, so having him makes it easier to bring out your fusions. But if you have the fusion material, you can opt to discard King of the Swamps to add a polymerization from your deck to your hand. Elemental hero decks like to use this a lot. Ojamas can use it too.
Okay, next, to contradict what Nova said, this is the best card of the Ojama deck, the Ojama Delta Hurricane. It's a normal spell card, but as long as you have Ojama Yellow, Black, and Green onto your field, you basically have a Lightning Vortex and a Heavy Storm at your disposal, but instead of it hitting you, it hits your opponent. And this could give you a total field advantage, turn the whole entire game around, and with these little boogers being normal monsters, and this card being so beast, how can you say no to that?
Alright, next we have the field spell for the Ojamas, Ojama Country. Once per turn, you can discard an Ojama card to special summon an Ojama monster from your graveyard, which will help build a defensive if you're on the defensive, or bring out some pretty beastly cards if you're on the offensive. Its secondary effect is that as long as you control an Ojama monster, the attack and defense of all monsters on the field are switched. Pretty much flipping the game over, no pun intended. Pretty much making giant beatstick monsters into teeny tiny little creatures who can't do anything, while your Ojamas turn into 1,000 attack monsters, which will most of the time be sufficient to get rid of your opponent.
Next in the list, we have Ojamagic. This card is actually a very good searcher. It is a normal spell card, but whenever it is destroyed on your side of the field, or is sent from your hand to the graveyard, you can search your deck for 1 Ojama green, 1 Ojama black, and 1 Ojama yellow, and place them into your hand, which gives you a good chance of pulling out an Ojama Delta Hurricane, perhaps using it for Ojama Red's special ability, or just using it as a polymerization for fusing these three together for my number 1 beatstick.
Next is Ground Collapse. Now, we haven't gotten to the point where Ojamas can take up your opponent's spell and monster card zones, because it takes a little effort to get those monsters out. So in the meantime, Ground Collapse is a good substitute. You pretty much pick 2 monster card zones on the field. As long as Ground Collapse is on the field, those zones can't be used. They can't summon onto them. Nothing. And here's our first fusion, Ojama Knight. It's light, level 5, still a beast, and it requires any 2 Ojamas with a fusion material. It's got 0 attack and 2,500 defense. Now the upside is that when it hits the field, it pretty much has the same effect as Ground Collapse. You pick 2 of your opponent's zones. As long as Ojama Knight's on the field, they can't be used.
And finally, we have the king of the game, Ojama King. No pun intended. It's a beast-type fusion monster, and unlike Ojama Knight, which could use any 2 Ojamas, you must have Ojama green, yellow, and black for this fusion. However, that is no problem due to the fact that his abilities make up for such a loss. Since not only is his defense at 3,000 for when you play Ojama Country, you've got a 3,000 attack power monster, but also because it blocks not 2 monster card zones, but 3, giving you a huge advantage over your opponent in field control.
And that's the Ojama. That's the Ojama.
Wait, Nova, why are you laughing?
It's because it's a deck of little munchkins in speedos.
Well, while Nova's catching his breath, what I'd like you guys to do is possibly comment, tell me what cards I could use that could help out the deck, and also just comment on the deck itself. I'd love to hear what you guys think.
Tiny.
Alright, that's it.
Who's laughing now, Nova?
Huh? What? Darkon? Darkon! Darkon, you let me out of the shoe this instant. You let me out of the shoe this... Oh, God. This is what shoes smell like?